This is Wisdom Anime Recap. This means war. The story begins with Lupin, who watched from his hiding place as a cult leader, renowned for the hypnotic drugs that flowed from his hands, inducing a state of euphoric delirium on his followers, was married off to a beautiful woman. He watched as she placed a pill in her mouth before going in for a passionate kiss, feeding it to him and taking him away to do what newlyweds do. Lupin pressed the red button on the remote he held in his hand, setting off an explosion that created a distraction, allowing him to follow the cult leader and his bride. Yet, the bride revealed herself to be a thief, like Lupin himself, and she beat him to the chase. Unfortunately, the cult leader proved himself to be immune to the pill's poison, and he stood, trapping them behind bars and drugging them with his seemingly supernatural powers. When they awoke, the woman revealed herself to be an admirer of Lupin before trying to seduce him. But Lupin knew her tricks, as he knew the woman's identity, Fujiko Mine, so he stopped her. The two discussed their plans to steal the cult leader's hypnotic drugs and his pendant. Then, Fujiko undressed herself without warning and offered herself to Lupin in exchange for him splitting the reward of the theft with her. But, just when he got wrapped up in the fantasy, she double-crossed him. After alerting the guards, she accused Lupin of trying to take advantage of her, so the guards dragged him away. She seduced the lone guard that was left behind with her and eliminated him, stealing his gun and clothes in the process. Lupin too managed to escape, so he approached Fujiko and he stole the gun for himself. He challenged her to a contest for the treasure they were here to steal, before leaping off the rooftop, while the cult's guards shot at him. Fujiko snuck into the cult leader's abode, disguising herself as one of his concubines, and drugged everyone in the room using the cult leader's own trick. She revealed that the secret was a mix of sleeping powder and sodium acetate, which he smeared onto his skin and allowed to dry, creating a chalky effect that could be released into the air with the lightest touch. Fujiko forced the cult leader to show her to the backroom lab where his drugs were produced. The guards came upon her once more, so she evaded them, before Lupin dragged her into another back room where they couldn't reach her, catching her by surprise. Here, she found a massive statue of the Buddha, which Lupin explained was made from the cult leader's hypnosis drugs. They engaged in a gunfight, after Fujiko marked Lupin's cheek with a glowing lipstick to keep him from hiding in the shadows. When the cops arrived, who Lupin tipped off out of the thrill of the chase, the cult leader attempted to sink the island and flee, destroying all evidence. Yet the cops knew his escape route and they intercepted him at the exit. Lupin, who'd found a way to attach rockets and a raft to the Buddha statue, flew away, through a wall and off the island. But Fujiko Mine refused to lose, so she shot him down from the sky, popping his raft, causing the statue to sink. When the cult members stormed the police boats, their only hope for escape, both Fujiko and Lupin took the opportunity to flee, now linked by a mutual thrill and intrigue of one another. Later, Fujiko played roulette at a casino, where the owner approached her, not to confront her about her cheating, but to offer a greater bet. She was willing to wager the entire casino, but in turn, Fujiko would have to wager her very being. This intrigued her, so she agreed. When Fujiko lost, the owner took her to the casino's penthouse suite, where she shared her name, Ciciolina, and after marveling at Fujiko's figure, revealed herself to be an admirer of hers. She was willing to grant Fujiko her freedom once more if she could steal the gun of a man by the name of Daisuke Jigen, the notorious gunman and former bodyguard of her late husband, the head of the Borgata crime family. Daisuke Jigen had eliminated him, leaving Ciciolina a widow. She had chosen Fujiko Mine because, as Ciciolina put it, he was weak to the allure of beautiful women. Jigen now worked for the head of the Chinese mafia, so Fujiko became his mistress, and Jigen was ordered to guard her as well. She did everything she could to seduce him, but Jigen would not reciprocate, in spite of her numerous advances. Fujiko questioned why Jigen had betrayed his former boss, but he refused to tell her, yet he still remembered his days working for Ciciolina. He thought of the day they hired him. He'd impressed her even then, and when she had tried to take her own life, he stopped her and cared for her when her husband wouldn't. Then Fujiko stole a kiss from him without warning, transferring a poison to him while he was lost in thought. She straddled his lap, whispering sweet words into his ears as she slipped her hand into his pocket and took his gun. He was to meet Ciciolina, Fujiko explained, at the place where they first made love. When Jigen lost consciousness, he recollected the day he had visited a church, where Ciciolina lay in a coffin, appearing to have carried out what he had once prevented her from doing. But when her husband called out to her, she awoke, pulling him inside with her. Cicciolina had been the one to put an end to her husband in an accident when she tried to wrestle a gun from his hand to prevent him from whacking Jigen as his suspicion was beginning to overwhelm him. Jigen willingly took the fall, becoming the Borgata family's prime target. When Jigen awoke, he visited the church once more. Now, Cicciolina stood at the chapel surrounded by her bodyguards, taunting him, as one of them revealed he had been sleeping with her. He told Jigen she'd never loved him. After Jigen eliminated the bodyguards, Cicciolina pointed her gun at him and he pointed his at her. She told him she was sure he couldn't bring himself to hurt her as they both pulled the trigger. Cicciolina fell, so Jigen held her in his arms. As he realized her gun was empty, she had no intention of shooting him. Cicciolina had loved him. She had longed for him for years. She had orchestrated all of this, as it was the way she wanted to go out. Goemon Ishikawa brooded in the rain at the foot of his own grave. He wanted to flee from his past, so he met with a mysterious client who offered him a suitcase filled with money and promised notoriety in the criminal underworld in exchange for the assassination of the King of Austria. He promised it wouldn't become an international incident, and although he refused to disclose it, he was hired by the king's son-in-law, who'd married his eldest daughter. The king's eldest son, his heir, had passed away, so he chose his grandson, Marco, to be next in line for the throne. The son-in-law wanted the throne for himself, so he urged his wife to help him claim it, but she resisted, as she wanted her father to make the decision independently. The son-in-law hired Goemon in an attempt to underhandedly change her mind. As the king oversaw the packing of the priceless art he was shipping to his country, his grandchildren ran around and played. Fujiko Mine, who disguised herself as the children's caretaker, took them away so they wouldn't interfere with the workers. The priceless art was loaded into the back car of a train on which the king himself was riding with his grandchildren, as well as other passengers. The children ran around and played here too, until Marco, the king's chosen heir, bumped into Goemon, staining his clothes with ice cream. Goemon reacted in his usual dispassionate manner, but the children got scared, as they'd never seen a samurai before. Fujiko, who was still disguised as the children's caretaker, introduced herself as Maria, leading him away to clean him up. She told him about the children's past, that their parents had died in a tragic accident. The children inquired who Goemon was, so he told them he was a traveling entertainer, performing a trick with his sword to prove it. Fujiko was deeply impressed by him, and she showed it in her usual way, but Goemon vowed to not be swayed by her feminine charms, as he needed to focus on the job. Yet, when he braced himself to follow through on the execution, he stopped, not wanting the king's grandchildren to witness his actions. He climbed back into the train, running into Fujiko, who giggled at his newly soiled clothes. She helped him clean up once more, further testing the limits of his tolerance to her temptation. A second hitman neutralized the train engineer. The king's son-in-law had hired both men for the same job in a two-pronged operation, as he doubted Goemon's ability to complete the mission himself. The train raced past its station in Austria, plummeting toward the end of the line where the train would fall off a cliff. When Goemon discovered this, he decided to help the king, as it was clear to him that the second hitman was there to take him out as well. He and the king orchestrated a plan to detach the back cars in order to reduce the train's acceleration, in spite of the destruction of the countless priceless artwork stored inside. Their plan worked, but when the king tried to reward him, he left. In the end, the son-in-law was arrested by the king's guards after his second hitman ratted him out. Fujiko Mine left the king's house, concealed within the shroud of night, but Goemon stopped her. She professed her disappointment about the loss of the priceless art, but now she had a greater treasure, which she revealed when Goemon lost his patience. In an effort to learn her identity, he used his sword to slash off her clothes, revealing the king's belt, passed along through generations, wrapped around her waist. He told her he wanted to be with her, but Fujiko merely kissed him, disappearing just as the guards arrived. Two cops peered through the peephole on the lock of Zenigata's door, watching Fujiko Mine in a moment of vulnerability, until Oscar stopped them and sent them away. As they savored the afterglow, Zenigata told Fujiko about an opera singer, Ayan Meyer, who'd been burned in an accident. She now hid her injuries with a priceless mask, gifted to her by a wealthy admirer, which Lupin now planned to steal. He asked her to guard the mask in order to keep him from doing so, as an experiment of sorts. After she left, Oscar warned him that Fujiko Mine was liable to double-cross him, but Zenigata confessed this to be his plan. What he really wanted was for Fujiko to distract Lupin. At the opera house, Fujiko was given a tour. She met one of the stagehands who warned her of a phantom who'd fallen in love with Ayan. It would likely eliminate Lupin, he claimed, should he try to steal her mask. Fujiko was Ayan's bodyguard, so they sent her on stage to perform alongside her, but her presence was futile, as Lupin dragged her away immediately while disguised as a horse. Then, a stage lamp fell from where it hung and almost fell on Ayan's head, seemingly dropped by the phantom of the opera. Yet, Ayan didn't miss a beat. She continued the show to the end, inadvertently skirting the cops' suspicion. In the end, she fainted, so Zenigata told Fujiko to take her place, so he could still lure in Lupin. Fujiko held her own until the stage opened up below her and trapped her. Here, she discovered a note, which she deduced was given to Ayan to warn her to move to the marked spot on the stage when the light fell, so it wouldn't hit her. Ayan ascended onto the stage, singing a sublime, chilling piece as the phantom stole her away, and the windows blew open, letting in a swarm of bees that flooded the building. Lupin revealed himself to be responsible and shouted to Ayan that he'd placed a device in her mask that produced an inaudible sound that attracted the bees, so she tore it off, revealing she was not Ayan, but one of her former assistants. When Lupin swooped in to try to steal the mask, the phantom beat him to it and fled, leaving Lupin to face off against an eager Zenigata, who chased him until Lupin revealed a fake bullet wound from which he sprayed chili pepper paste, neutralizing him. Meanwhile, as Fujiko searched for the exit, she came upon the phantom, who revealed himself to be the stagehand from earlier. He threatened to eliminate her, as she'd seen his identity, until a second figure stopped them, also dressed as the phantom. She revealed herself to be Ayan Meyer, then she embraced the stagehand. The two of them were lovers. They showed Fujiko their underground home amidst the catacombs. Their love was forbidden, as Ayan's reputation was threatened by their relationship, yet she was determined to be with him. Ayan trained her former assistant so she could take her place. Then, she burned her own face, so her assistant would have an excuse to conceal her identity. Now they could love each other in peace, so she had no use for the priceless mask. She cast it into the fire as Fujiko sank to her knees in anguish.